everyone, it's Celine from Blue Cala Patterns and welcome to video 2 for the Lupin laptop bag. In this video, we're going to be sewing the front and the back exterior panels of our bag. So if we look at the sample bag, we're going to be sewing this panel and this panel, including sewing the handles, everything, the zipper pocket, we're going to be sewing all of that. The pieces that you're going to need are, so let's start with the handles. You need two 40-inch long pieces of 1.5-inch wide webbing. You need your exterior zipper pocket zipper. So that is the 14-inch pre-made or 14 inches of zipper tape. Both of your 18mm magnetic snaps. Your two main body exterior panels, and those have fusible woven interfacing, and then we basted some foam interfacing to the wrong side. Then for your exterior pocket pieces, so you're going to need both of your exterior pocket band pieces. I'm using cork, so there's no interfacing on the wrong side, but if you used fabric, there should be a layer of fusible woven interfacing and then fusible fleece with the seam allowance trimmed away along that top and bottom longer edges. Then for the exterior zipper pocket, there should be 3 pieces that you're going to need. The exterior zipper pocket facing piece, and that you used the pattern piece, the paper pattern piece, to cut that out. The two exterior zipper pocket lining pieces, and those were cut to measurements, and then your 4 exterior slip pocket pieces. So you're going to have 2 exterior pieces, 2 lining pieces, and all 4 of these should have fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the centers on the wrong side of our main body panels. Now in the pattern, I tell you to do this for the exterior and the lining pieces at the same time. I'm going to do the lining pieces, but I'm going to do those off camera. I'm just going to show you how to mark the centers on the exterior pieces. So you're going to start by folding it in half, right sides together, vertically, and then you're going to mark the center on the wrong side on that bottom and top edge. Okay, and then you're going to fold that in half, right sides together, horizontally. Make sure those rounded corners are lined up nicely. And then you're again marking that center on both sides on the wrong side. And then we're going to do the same thing for the second. So now you're going to take your handle pieces and we're going to do a couple of things to the ends to prevent too much fraying from happening. So I'm going to start by applying some fray check and letting that dry properly. And then I like to be extra cautious, and once the fray check has dried, I'm actually going to also zigzag stitch the ends of those pieces of webbing. Okay, so make sure that you just pause and give these a chance to dry properly before you zigzag stitch them, otherwise you're going to get fray check all over your machine. And then once they're dry, you're going to go over and just zigzag stitch the ends, and then we're ready to use the handles. So the first thing we're going to do with our handles are to find the center. So you can fold them. You could also measure them if you were really precise about measuring them to be exactly 40 inches. But if you're not super confident, then you can just fold them in half, and then I'm just going to use a pin because I'm using a really light colored webbing and I'm a little bit nervous about marking that with any sort of pen or pencil or anything at all. So instead, I'm just going to use a pin. All right, then open that up and use a ruler and measure. So you want to now place another pin 6.5 inches on both sides of that center pin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So I want that to be right here. And then I'm doing the same on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. Okay. And now what we want to do is we want to fold the strap in half in between this mark and this mark. And I'm going to leave the pins as markers. And I'm just going to use clips when I fold them in half. So I'm going to start with the center first. And then, as far as I can tell, there is no right side or wrong side to this webbing. So it doesn't really matter. If yours has a right side and a wrong side, you'll want to pay attention to that. And then fold this in half. Now I'm not going to show you how to do this for both. You're just going to have to pause the video and repeat this for the second handle. Okay, and now we're going to sew the handle from this pin to this pin, and you're going to sew along the edges here. So not the folded end, but the other edge, the opposite edges to the folded edge, with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you're going to backstitch at the beginning and the end. So from this pin to this pin, and backstitching beginning and the end. Okay, so now you're going to need one of your main body panels, and you are going to need one of your handles. Just trim a thread here. Okay, so you want your handle placed on top of your main body panel. So the main body panel is right side facing up, and your handle is right side facing up. And this part is the right side of your handle. This is the wrong side of your handle. And we're going to measure and find the location 4 inches from this edge along the bottom here. And if you have one of these clear rulers, quilting rulers, they are fantastic for lining things up on bags. So these are not just for quilters, these are fantastic for bag making as well. So you're going to place the handle so that this edge is 4 inches in from this side. And you're going to pin or clip that in place. So I'm going to use a clip at the bottom, and then I have to use pins for the rest. And I'm going to pin it all the way from the bottom to the top, making sure that it stays consistently 4 inches from the edge here. Just going to put these in like this. Then I'll take out the ruler and finish pinning these properly. So once I've pinned them, I actually uh, place the ruler again and just double checked. See, I just moved it, so I know this part is going to be wrong. But I just want to make any adjustments if I did move the strap piece. So this part here did move over a bit. It's really not cooperating. And just want to double check the top edge. Okay, so that's good. And now I'm going to do exactly the same thing for this side. I want it to be 4 inches over from this side. So this space here is 4 inches. Now we're going to sew the handles in place, and we're going to start at one of the bottom corners here, and with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the edge of the handle, you're going to sew all the way up until you get 1 3/4 inches from this top edge. So I'm going to measure that and add another pin to mark where I need to stop sewing. Turn it this way. So I need to stop sewing right here. Again, these handles are really light color. I just don't trust any fabric pens. I'm going to mark with pins instead. Then I'm going to do the same for this side. So 1 3/4 inches down from the top edge, which is right here. Okay, so you're starting from this bottom corner using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, backstitch here at the end here when you're starting. Go all the way up until you reach that 1 3/4 inch pin. Then stop and rotate and sew across until you reach 1/8 of an inch from this edge. And then sew all the way down and then backstitch at the end. Now, I also would like to reinforce the handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a box of stitching right here, just right at the where you have this mark where you're going to stop sewing. You're going to sew a square box of stitching. So it'll be about 1.5 inches square, and you can even sew a little X inside. You just want this part to be reinforced because it's going to be holding the weight of your laptop, which is quite heavy. So now I have my handles attached to both of my main body exterior pieces. So I'm going to set those aside for just a minute. Now you're going to need one of your exterior slip pocket pieces and one of your exterior pocket band pieces. And now this is important. If you're using a directional fabric for your pocket band, you're going to, so it's going to be end up being folded. So the edge that you're attaching to the exterior slip pocket, you want that to be the bottom edge of your print. So I usually try to avoid using directional prints on things like this, just for that very reason. But that's just something important to note if you are using a directional print. So you're going to place the bottom edge of that pocket band with the top edge, the top straight edge of that exterior slip pocket. And you're going to pin or clip them together. And then we're going to sew them together along this top edge and make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seam. Now, because I'm using cork, I can't press the seam allowance. So I'm going to finger press as I top stitch. So if you're using fabric, you're now going to press the pocket band away from the slip pocket piece. And you want that seam allowance to be pointing upwards. And I cannot press, so I'm going to finger press and top stitch at the same time. And when you're top stitching along the bottom edge of the pocket band piece. So now you're going to need one of your lining pieces, your slip pocket lining pieces. And you're going to place it, so you want the wrong side facing you, facing up. And you're going to align that top straight edge with the other edge of the pocket band piece. And we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to sew these together, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. So once again, can't press because I'm using cork. So I'm doing exactly as I did here. I am going to finger press, and I want that seam allowance to be pointing up towards this pocket band piece. If you're using fabric, you can press. So you're pressing that seam allowance towards the pocket band, and then you're top stitching along the bottom edge of the pocket band. Okay, so this is what your exterior slip pocket should look like right now. Now we're going to fold this in half, and we want the bottom corners here of your exterior and your lining, you want those to be aligned perfectly, and then just clip those together. And then If you used fabric for your exterior pocket band, obviously you can press this top folded edge. So we're folding this completely in half, and you want these the bottom edges here of your exterior pocket band, you want those to be lined up. So we're just making sure really that the pocket piece is folded perfectly in half. So if you're using fabric, you would press this folded edge and then you would top stitch along the top edge. Again, I'm using cork, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few clips so that I know where my folded edge is. And then I'm going to top stitch and finger press at the same time as I'm sewing. So you're just top stitching this top folded edge with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the edge. So now we want to install 1/2 of our snap on the wrong side of our exterior slip pocket, and we're going to be installing it in the center of the pocket band piece. So first thing we need to do is we need to get one of our snaps. So you should have two parts here. They don't look the same. So there's your male half, there's your female half. I like to install the male half in the pocket and then the female half in the body. So we're just going to set aside half of it for now. And then we need to find the center here. So the first thing we're going to do is fold the pocket in half this way, vertically, I suppose. Okay, so then we know that this is the center of the pocket this way. And then we also need to find the center of this portion here of the pocket band, and that's approximately 7/8 of an inch from the top edge. Okay, now once we've found that mark, we take our washer and we place that with the center hole of the washer over top of that mark that we just made, and then you're going to mark the location where we're going to install the prongs. On either side, it's these rectangle boxes. Now you're going to need a seam ripper, and you're going to take off these clips if you still have them, like I do. Now we're going to cut out the prong marks, and you're not cutting those through both layers, so you're only going to be cutting it in this portion here, which is attached to the lining piece. So you're going to reach in there and make sure that they're separated, and then you have to very carefully cut out these marks. Now I'm using cork. I don't really worry about it fraying too much, but just to be on the safe side, I'll add fray check. If you used fabric, you absolutely must apply fray check to these holes. Okay, and then you can take your snap and you can insert those prongs. So there's a couple of things that I like to do to reinforce the prongs. So there's two things that I like to add here in this step. So the first thing that I like to add to reinforce my magnetic snap is a scrap of Peltex. And so I just cut out the prong holes in this piece as well. And I just place that. Then I add my washer. And then I spread those prongs. Some of the prongs are really strong, and I just figured out to use the handle of my rotary cutter to flatten them. Now I also want to cover the prongs to protect this portion here of the pocket band. So there's a few options of what you can put. You can cover it with a scrap of fusible woven interfacing, fusible fleece, whatever you like. I've also seen some put pieces of tape, like a duct tape or something similar. And I do have tape somewhere. Here it is. So what I'm just going to do, I actually might change this after because I'm not a huge fan of using tape, to be honest. But I can change this after off video. So I'm just going to, this is just a piece of clear packing tape. And it's just to protect your fabric. So I'm just going to cover that to protect. And then we have one half of our snap installed. And now we can attach this piece of the pocket to our one of our main body panels. So we still do have to install the other half of our snap, but I like to base the pocket in place where I know it's going to be in its final location. And then I'm going to use this installed half of the snap to decide where I'm going to install the other half. So the first thing we're going to do is just use a lot of clips and just hold this pocket in place. And then we're going to baste it in place. We're going to just sew along all these sides here with 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't really make a difference. It's just a quick basting stitch to hold the pocket in place. Now, if you were a little bit maybe not exact with the assembly of this pocket or the cutting of your pieces, one good thing to do is to measure the distance here. And if your pocket is a little bit crooked, you're going to want to straighten it, because if this band is crooked a little bit, it will show and it will probably bother you. So now I'm just going to do the basting stitch here. So when I do a basting stitch like this, I'm doing it with the foam, the wrong side facing up, because I find that the feed dogs help the pocket to not pucker or pinch. So now the pocket is basted in place, we have to install the other half of our snap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this snap to mark the location. So I just sort of press down, and the male part, the little part sticking out, sort of kind of creates a little dent in my fabric, showing me where I need to install the snap. So this is going to be in the way. I want you to be able to see. So I'm just going to do this. Okay, so there's my center mark. So I'm doing exactly what I did when I installed the half in here. And I'm just placing the mark in the center hole of the washer and then marking the location of the prongs on either side. Just going to double check, make sure I'm happy with this placement. Yes, that's good. Okay, then again, you're using your seam ripper to cut out the prong holes, and you're going through all the layers. So this fabric here, the woven interfacing, and the foam interfacing. When you're cutting these holes with a seam ripper, be very careful. You don't want to make a huge tear in your fabric because you'll probably cry. I know I would. Okay. And then I'm using fabric, so for sure, absolutely, I am going to add some fray check. And then insert the other half of my snap. My prongs are crooked. There we go. Okay, I'm going to take this off now. And then we're going to do a little bit of the same thing. So because I have foam here, I'm not going to add the Peltex. It's not as important because the foam is pretty stable. I'm just going to flatten this. And then again, I want to cover those prongs to make sure they don't damage my lining fabric of my bag. Okay. Okay, so now we finished one of our main body pieces. Okay, so this main body piece is done. We can set it aside for now. Oh, let's have a look at our pocket. There's our pocket. So now we're going to need the zipper. We're going to need our exterior zipper pocket facing piece. We're going to need this exterior slip pocket piece and our two zipper pocket lining pieces. Okay, so we're going to start with the exterior zipper facing piece, and you're going to take the exterior zipper facing pattern piece and you're going to cut along that dashed line so that you have this cutout in that pattern piece. And then on the wrong side of the zipper facing piece, you're going to draw out that shape. Now we want to place the exterior zipper facing piece on top of the exterior slip pocket piece. And we want this top edge to be lined up with the top edge, but we also want it to be centered very nicely. So you can just quickly fold this in half, right sides together. And then just right here at the top, you want to mark your center. And then we want to do the same thing for this piece, but we want to mark it on the right side because we are going to be sewing these right sides together. So you want to just mark the center there. Now line up those center marks and make sure that they're also lined up here all along the top edge, and then pin your exterior zipper facing piece in place. Like this. Now we're going to sew along the line that we just drew, and you're going to start at one end, backstitch, go slowly around the curves to make sure that you're following the shape nicely all the way across. So go slowly around the curve and then backstitch when you get at the top edge again. So once they're sewn together, let's take off those pins. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out a little bit of this space here, both layers, so the zipper facing and the slip pocket piece. So I'm just going to trim it so that there's about 1/4 inch left in that seam allowance. Don't worry, if it's not precise. It doesn't have to be exactly 1/4 inch the entire way. You just don't want to cut too close to the stitching. And then in the corners here, when we press this, we want the corners to stay nice and rounded. So you're just going to clip a little bit, and you want to get as close as you can to that stitching. So hopefully you can see this. I'm trying to get as close as I can to the stitching without cutting any of those stitches. I'm going to do that here as well. And that's just so that those curved corners sit nice and flat. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this facing piece towards the wrong side of the slip pocket piece. And we're going to press that seam all along the shape that we just sewed. Now, I always say to go really slowly when you're doing this step because I like to have the opening of my zipper pockets look very nice. So I just do a little bit at a time and press. So now you see the clipping that I did here. It resulted in a really nice curved corner.
You'll now need your 14-inch exterior zipper pocket zipper and both of your exterior zipper pocket lining pieces. Place one exterior zipper pocket lining piece right side facing up, and then take your 14-inch zipper with the pull to the right and place it over top, also right side facing up. Use pins or clips to pin it in place along the top edge of the lining piece. Make sure that it is centered in the middle of the lining piece. Clip in place and then sew along the top edge with 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across. Make sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now your lining piece is attached to your zipper, and you're going to flip the lining piece away from the zipper and press it, including the seam allowance, away from the zipper. We're now going to do the same thing and attach the second lining piece to the other side of the zipper. Place that second lining piece right side facing up and place the zipper also right side facing up, making sure that the sides of both lining pieces are aligned on both sides. and you're clipping the other edge of your zipper to the top edge of the second lining piece. And then again, you're going to sew across with 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now both lining pieces are attached to the zipper. You're going to do the same thing and flip that second lining piece away from the zipper and press the lining piece and the seam allowance away from the zipper. Now both lining pieces should be wrong side facing up and the zipper should be right side facing up. Now take your assembled exterior slip pocket with attached zipper facing and place it over top with the zipper centered in the middle of the curved opening. Flip up the top corners of the slip pocket and make sure that the sides of your zipper facing are aligned with the sides of the zipper pocket lining pieces. You also want to make sure that the top straight edge of your exterior slip pocket is aligned with the top edge of your zipper. Pin in place. Move the pull out of the way so that when you're sewing the curved ends, you don't accidentally sew over your zipper pull. Now finish pinning the rest of your exterior slip pocket to your zipper with attached lining pieces. We're now going to sew the pocket to the zipper. If you lift up the slip pocket, you'll see that you have a lining piece along the bottom and a lining piece along the top. You're going to sew along the curved edge where we installed the zipper facing. You'll start at one top corner, backstitch, sew along the curved side very slowly with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now you'll turn your exterior slip pocket so it's lining side facing up. Your zipper is wrong side facing up and your lining pieces are right side facing up. Take the top lining piece and fold it down so that the lining pieces are now right sides together. The top edge will be folded and you want that folded edge to be lined up with the top edge of the exterior slip pocket and the top edge of the zipper. Use some clips to hold that folded edge in place. You want it to stay perfectly aligned with the top edge of the zipper. The bottom edges of your lining pieces do not meet exactly. That's okay. We're going to trim them in a few minutes. You're now going to pin the 2 zipper pocket lining pieces along both sides. You're not pinning them to the exterior slip pocket piece, only the 2 lining pieces are being pinned together. Now you can trim away the excess lining from one of the lining pieces. So you're going to try to sew reasonably close to the opening here, this stitching here, the top stitching, and then you're going to back stitch. You're going to sew down and then stop and rotate, sew across, and then you're going to stop and rotate and sew to the top, and make sure that you back stitch at the beginning and the end. Now when I'm sewing, I sew, so I flip my slip pocket piece out of the way, and then I like to make sure that I'm sewing through the zipper part. So back stitching first, and then I'm going to keep track of where my pins are because I don't like sewing over pins. So I'm going to take this pin out. Now I'm going to sew down towards the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to stop and rotate and sew along the bottom edge. Stop and take a pin out. Okay, I don't want to go too far because I want to sew across my zipper at this end as well. Might have to sew a little bit inwards to get that. Okay, so again, make sure that the actual slip pocket piece is out of the way. Take your pin out. And then I'm trying again to make sure that I'm sewing on the end of the zipper here. And then I am back stitching. Now, another thing that I want to do in this step, remember when we have the folded edge here? I want to just base that fold onto this edge of the zipper. So I'm just going to do a quick basting stitch, and I'm going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And all this is doing is, it's two purposes to doing this. It just keeps everything nicely aligned and flattened how I want it, but it also is going to keep that back lining piece away from the zipper, so when I open and close the zipper, it doesn't get caught in the coil. Okay, so now this zipper pocket is done. This is what it looks like from the wrong side, the right side. I can open it up and it's a real pocket now. Close it. So now there's going to be a repetition of steps. So you're going to, this is the end of this video, but you're going to now stop. You're going to go back to when we attached the exterior and lining slip pocket pieces to this first exterior pocket band piece. You're also going to install the magnetic snap. So you're going to repeat a lot of the steps that we just did in this video ignore the fact that there is a zipper pocket here. Just follow exactly the same steps. You're pinning these together, sewing along the top, making sure to backstitch. You're doing exactly all of the same steps that we just did when we created this pocket here. And then that will be the end for this video. In the next video, we're going to be working on our lining pieces. So we're going to work on our laptop pocket, our expandable pockets, before we move on to some of the final assembly of the bag.